By far the Rebbe's most famous book, and the first book the Rebbe ever published, was the Sefer of Hayom Yom, which has a thought and an entry for every single day on the calendar. So I'm going to go through the history and the backstory of how Hayom Yom came to be and different things the Rebbe and the Friediker Rebbe said about it. So it all started on Achron Shel Pesach in the year 1940, which is a little over a month after the Friediker Rebbe had come to America. And the Friediker Rebbe was talking then about different Chabad customs, and he said that really someone has to undertake a project to collect and gather and organize all Chabad customs and put it in a book and lay it out for day-to-day life, day-to-day use. And it should be a universal and authoritative book that all Chabad Chassidim worldwide follow and rely on. And besides for just having customs, it should also contain certain piskamim and short and concise thoughts and ideas. And then the Friediker Rebbe said that a work of such precision, a book of such precision that he's envisioning, can only be made by someone who is a tifeh pnimi, which means someone who is a deeply authentic human being, by someone who is a gruntige mesuder, which means someone who is thoroughly organized, and by someone who has a das rechava va'amuka, which means someone with a deep and broad mind. And then the Friediker Rebbe said that Baruch Hashem has blessed him, that any time he has an idea or a project or an undertaking which he truly and deeply feels will be to the benefit of the Jewish world at large and to the Chassidic community in particular, whether it will benefit them in Torah, in Yerushalayim, or in Parnasa, so Hashem always helps and arranges that sooner or later different things come together and different things fall into place, and it always ends up happening. And the Friediker Rebbe said, therefore, he's extremely hopeful that this project too, Hashem will arrange that everything will fall into place and come together, and it will happen, and this book will come out, and that will make him very happy, and it will be of great benefit to the Anash community. And that is what the Friediker Rebbe said on Achron Shel Pesach in the year 1940. Now, a little over a year later, on Chaf Ches Sivan 1941, the Rebbe came from war-torn Europe, and the Rebbe arrived in America. And then about a year and a half later, on Chaf Kislev 1942, so the Friediker Rebbe wrote a letter to the Rebbe, and the Friediker Rebbe set the Rebbe this task of creating this book, of making a Chabad calendar, making a Chassidic calendar. And he told him that the calendar should begin, the first entry should be yesterday, Yutes Kislev 1942, and it should go till Chai Kislev 1943. And the calendar should have an entry for every single day, and the calendar should contain three things. So first of all, every single day the Rebbe should tell Chassidim and tell Jews what is that day's Chumash, Tehillim, and Tanya that needs to be studied and needs to be read. What is that day's Chitas? Additionally, there should be universal Chabad customs throughout the calendar that all Chabad Chassidim need to know and keep. And lastly, throughout the calendar should be various piskamim and short and concise thoughts and ideas. And the Rebbe immediately got to work and started working on this project, and it took the Rebbe about 4 months to complete, and then finally in Nisan of 1943, Hayom Yom was published. And the Rebbe said several times that the Friediker Rebbe closely oversaw the project and approved of every step of the process and looked everything over, and that multiple things the Rebbe had put in, multiple customs of Minhagim the Rebbe had put into the book, the Friediker Rebbe actually took them out, saying that they're not meant for everyone. Additionally, the Rebbe shared how the Friediker Rebbe had agreed to release and reveal and publicize certain customs for the first time that till then had always been kept secret, had always been shrouded in mystery, but for the sake of this project, the Friediker Rebbe revealed them to the world. And we have a letter from the Rebbe from Yud Aleph Adar Sheni 1943, only a couple of weeks before Hayom Yom was published, and the Rebbe is writing to someone apologizing for taking so long to get back to them. And the Rebbe says, nowadays I'm so busy with this project, I'm so busy working on this project for my father-in-law that I don't really have time for anything else. Now, one very interesting thing about the way the Rebbe set up Hayom Yom, and I'm not sure why, I'm not sure what the deeper significance of this is, but the Rebbe formatted it in such a way that the entry of Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos is always on the right page, and the entry of Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is always on the left page. For some reason, I'm not sure why. And then Hayom Yom came out in Nisan of 1943. Now, what's very interesting is that when Hayom Yom came out in Nisan 1943, so the first third of the calendar, all the entries from Yutes Kislev 1942 to Nisan 1943 had already gone by, had already passed. And what's very interesting is that there are Hayom Yom entries that are taken from siches and letters that the Friediker Rebbe said and wrote after Yutes Kislev 1942, after the project had already begun, after the first entry in the calendar, which is just interesting. Now, they say that when the Friediker Rebbe got his copy, so he was extremely happy, and he said, this is mazen ruchni for every single day, which means this is spiritual food and spiritual sustenance for every single day of the year. And additionally, they say that when the Rebbe's younger brother, Yisrael Ayer Leib, who was living in Israel at the time, so when he got a copy of Hayom Yom, so he was elated and he was dancing with joy, but then he became very serious and very sad. And he said, Chaval, that there's no one to appreciate this book. Chaval, there's no one to appreciate the treasures that are buried in this book. And on another occasion, he commented about Hayom Yom, that I always knew that my brother had a good kach, but ad k'dei kach, which means I always knew my brother, the Rebbe, had a good head. He was a pretty smart guy. But this book about Hayom Yom is like next level. Now, we have a letter from the Friediker Rebbe from Chaf Ches Nisan 1943, which is only a couple of weeks after Hayom Yom was published. And the Friediker Rebbe is writing to someone, and he says, I'm sure you've seen the new incredible book of Hayom Yom. And he says, it's a small book, small in format, the same way a chassid needs to be small in his own eyes. In other words, Chassidus teaches us how to be small in our own eyes, how to be small in our own estimation, how to be truly humble. And the book of Hayom Yom, which captures and embodies all of Chassidus and the spirit of Chassidus, so it reflects that by being physically a small book, mirroring that the Chassid who studies it has to be and has to become a humble person. And the Friediker Rebbe said that even though it's a small book, it is jam-packed with the most precious and valuable pearls and diamonds and gems. And he said it is a work of true Chassidishe culture, which is an interesting expression. And then the Friediker Rebbe said that Hashem has blessed my son-in-law the Rebbe with the ability to construct and put up this beautiful and splendid palace of 383 rooms, meaning Hayom Yom, which has 383 entries. And he says what Hayom Yom has accomplished is by giving a meaningful and powerful thought for every single day, it has shown us that every day is expressing something powerful, a powerful idea, a powerful message, a powerful energy. And that allows for true Hayom Yom, that every day in our life should be a day, every day should be a powerful day, every day should be a meaningful day, every day should be a Jewish day, that no day should be a lazy day and should be insignificant, unimportant. No, Hayom Yom, every day is a day, every day is important, every day is meaningful, every day is powerful. And that is what the book has accomplished, and that is what the title of the book is, Hayom Yom, making every day count, making every day a day. And obviously that title, Hayom Yom, is taken from our daily prayers from Shir Shal Yom, where every single day we say Hayom Yom, today is this day, today is this prayer, today is this energy. And the Friediker Rebbe concluded that letter by quoting that day's Hayom Yom, the Hayom Yom of Chaf Ches Nisan, which just shows you what chashivas Hayom Yom had in the Friediker Rebbe's eyes. Then we have a letter from the Rebbe from Toras Menachem of 1943, sometime after Hayom Yom was published. And in the letter, the Rebbe mentions Hayom Yom, and he says the recent publication of Hayom Yom has caused and sparked tremendous joy in the Chassidishe world. That's what the Rebbe wrote. Now, what's very interesting is that by us Chabad Chassidim, so the real start of the year is Yud Kislev. Yud Kislev is the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus. And the two Chassidishe books which reflect that practically is the Tanya and Hayom Yom, which are both structured in such a way and are designed in such a way that we start learning them on Yud Kislev. But what people don't realize is the Friediker Rebbe only revealed the annual cycle of Tanya. The Friediker Rebbe only revealed to the world how Tanya is meant to be learned on an annual cycle in Hayom Yom for the first time. And therefore, Hayom Yom was practically the first book to follow this idea that Yud Kislev is Rosh Hashanah Chassidus. It was structured in such a way that you start learning it on Yud Kislev. And it's Hayom Yom that taught us, and Hayom Yom that taught Chassidim, that that's the way we're meant to approach Tanya as well. That's the way Tanya is meant to be studied. You're also meant to start on Yud Kislev. And because of this, throughout 1943 and beyond, so often when the Friediker was talking about studying Tanya, he wouldn't say learning the Shiuri Tanya, he would refer to it as learning the Shiuri Hayom Yom. And on Shavuos 1943, a tiny while after Hayom Yom was published, so the Friediker Rebbe actually said that those here who have been careful to keep the Shiuri Hayom Yom will be able to experience Matan Torah this year in a much deeper, more powerful way. Now, we do know that the Rebbe started working on what seems to have been another Hayom Yom project that would have gone from Yud Kislev 1943 to Chai Kislev 1944. And the Rebbe started working on that and drew up several tens of entries, but for whatever reason that was dropped and it never came to fruition. But the entries the Rebbe started working on and started to draw up have been printed in the back of Hayom Yom. Now in Tafshin Yud Zayin, the Rebbe had them reprint Hayom Yom, and the Rebbe made some very significant changes in the Hayom Yom, especially to the customs and minhagim, and some very, very, very significant changes from the original edition. And additionally, the Rebbe updated the Friediker Rebbe's biography in the beginning of Hayom Yom, and the Rebbe put in his own biography. And what's very cool is the most accurate biography we have of the Rebbe is in the beginning of Hayom Yom, because the Rebbe himself oversaw it and edited it. Then in 1988, Hayom Yom was translated into English for the first time, which is obviously a very significant event. And then finally, on Yud Kislev Tafshin Memches, Yud Kislev 1987, so the Rebbe was talking about Hayom Yom, And he mentioned how the Friediker Rebbe had overseen the project very, very closely and approved of everything and overseen everything. And then he said it was behashgacha pratis that the Friediker Rebbe had him write it in a year that was a leap year. And that way there was a relevant Hayom Yom entry for every single day of the year forever. And he said even though it doesn't always fall out on the same kvias, even though it doesn't always fall out on the same day of the week or on the same parsha as the year that was originally written for, he said there is a connection between every Hayom Yom entry and today, what's happening today in your life, what's happening today in the world. And there's a relevance and there's a message and there's a connection. And he said Hashem should help that we should reinlegen in them, which means we should put our heads to it, to finding the connection, finding the meaning, finding the message. And he says if we are reinlegen in them, if we put our heads to it, we will be able to find the meaning and find the message and find the connection a lot easier than we would have imagined, a lot easier than we would have thought possible. And he says if we do this, if we truly live with Hayom Yom every day, if we internalize the message of Hayom Yom every day, he says then all of us will be able to bo bayamim, come with our days, which is an expression borrowed from the Chumash. And the Chumash is describing tzaddikim which have become very old. And it says they were bo bayamim, which means they were well on in days. But literally the words mean they came with their days, which means it's a way of saying that they lived a full life, they lived life to the fullest, they utilized their time here on earth, they utilized their days here on earth. Every day was a meaningful, powerful, productive Jewish day. And the Rebbe says if we live with the message of Hayom Yom every day, we will be able to come at the end of the year, bo bayamim, come with all our days, come with a full life, a full year full of days, full of powerful, meaningful Jewish days. He says that's the way we'll come to the Gula HaMitzvah Hashlema Mashiach. And that is what the Rebbe said. And what's very interesting about the Sikha is that there are 2 months on the Hebrew calendar, the month of Cheshvan and Kislev, which some years are 29 days and some years are able to be 30 days long. And in the year that Hayom Yom was written, 1942, 1943, so both Cheshvan and Kislev were both only 29 days long, which means anyone who has a birthday on Lamed Cheshvan, the rarest birthday on the calendar, or anyone who has a birthday on Lamed Kislev, there is actually no Hayom Yom entry for those birthdays, which obviously that in itself is a message. And that is a little bit of the history behind the Hayom Yom. I hope you enjoyed.